A young highway patrol officer vanished during a violent thunderstorm in 1998. No mayday, no crash site, no trace dot, just gone. For years, rumors spread. Some said she ran off. Others whispered about corruption, cover-ups, even murder. But her family knew something wasn't right. And they never stopped searching. Then, 11 years later, a road crew clearing out a flooded storm drain made a discovery no one could explain. Buried beneath the highway, sealed behind rusted metal and packed mud, they found twisted steel. It looked like debris until they saw the faded black and white paint. It was a patrol car. And when they looked inside, what they found changed everything. Not just a body, not just evidence, but a detail so chilling. It reopened the entire case and revealed someone had gone to great lengths to keep the truth buried. Who was trying to hide what happened to Officer Rachel Monroe? And how did her patrol car end up locked inside a culvert no one was supposed to find? What happened that stormy night was no accident. And the truth, when it finally came out, shocked even the people who thought they'd seen it all. It was just after 5 p.m. when the thunder started rolling in over rural Texas. Highway 59 stretched out for miles with almost no traffic. Dark clouds moved fast, turning the sky black. Rain slammed down hard. Lightning cracked across the sky every few seconds. Officer Rachel Monroe, just 27 years old, was on patrol. She wore her tan highway uniform and drove a black and white cruiser. That day, she was working alone. She had done this route dozens of times. But something about that storm felt different. At 5:02 p.m., Rachel radioed dispatch. Her voice was calm, checking on a white sedan. Looks abandoned. Mile marker 89. It was routine. Officers stopped to check on empty cars all the time. She didn't sound worried. But after that call, nothing else came through. No update. No second call. Just silence. Dispatch tried calling back. No answer. 10 minutes later, they tried again. Still nothing. Outside, the storm kept getting worse. Wind shook trees. Power lines went down. But inside that radio room, a strange feeling crept in. Where was Rachel? By 5:30 p.m., backup was sent to check on her. 2 officers drove out fast, expecting to find Rachel helping a stranded driver or sitting in her car, waiting for a tow truck. But when they arrived at mile marker 89, the scene was empty. The white sedan Rachel had mentioned was there, but it was unlocked and had no one inside. Rachel's cruiser? Gone. They searched the area, looked over the edge of the road, checked nearby trees, ditches, and guardrails. There were no skid marks, no signs of a crash, no signs of a struggle. Just nothing. Rain was still pouring down hard. The ground was soaked, but even in the mud, there were no fresh footprints. Her radio didn't respond. Her phone went straight to voicemail. It was like she'd been erased from the road. The officers called it in. Patrol car and officer not at scene, possibly missing. Within minutes, police shut down part of the highway. Something was very wrong. That night, the search for Rachel Monroe began. More officers were called in. Search teams were formed. Helicopters with spotlights flew over fields and rivers. Police dogs were brought in. Dive teams checked ditches and culverts filled with water. They used every light they had, every tool, every vehicle. But they couldn't find a single piece of her car or her. No glass, no metal, no torn uniform, no radio signal. The land around mile marker 89 was mostly flat-some hills, a few wooded spots, a dried creek bed, but it was all checked. Again and again. People who lived nearby came out to help. Farmers, retired cops, even teenagers with flashlights. Everyone thought. Maybe the storm swept her car into a ditch. Maybe she crashed and couldn't call. Maybe she was hurt somewhere, waiting. But hour after hour passed. By midnight, no one had found anything. And by dawn, the search teams were tired, soaked, and confused. How does a trained officer in a full-size patrol car just vanish during a routine stop? Her family was called. Her face went up on news stations. The storm had passed, but the silence had just begun. Back at the highway patrol station, Rachel's car spot sat empty. Her desk still had her notes from earlier that day. Her coffee cup was half full. Warm. Her locker was neatly arranged, boots polished, photos taped inside the door, her backup flashlight fully charged. Rachel's fellow officers walked past her desk, hoping to hear a joke or see her walk in. But by morning, they knew she wasn't coming back. Dispatch replayed the last radio call over and over. It sounded so normal. Too normal. Checking on a white sedan. Looks abandoned. Then silence. Officers sat in the break room without speaking. Her partner off duty that day kept calling her phone. Voicemail. Again and again. This wasn't a runaway. This wasn't someone who wanted to disappear. Rachel Monroe was the kind of person who showed up early, stayed late, and never missed a call. Now, her badge was still on the board. Her cruiser was gone, and no one could explain how. By the third day, the whispers began. Locals gathered in diners and gas stations, trading wild guesses. Some said Rachel's cruiser was swept into a sinkhole. Others claimed she'd stopped the wrong car, maybe drug traffickers, maybe someone dangerous trying to avoid arrest. One man swore he saw strange lights over the highway the night she vanished. Another blamed a secret government experiment, a UFO, an ambush, a curse. But some rumors turned darker. People started asking, what if Rachel left on purpose? What if she staged the whole thing? It didn't sit right with her fellow officers. Rachel was solid, dependable, but rumors have a way of growing fast when there's no new information. Even the local news started leaning into the mystery. How does a police officer disappear during a routine stop? No answers, no footage, no clues. Just silence. And stories. In the absence of facts, people created their own. Rachel's family didn't buy the rumors. Not for a second. Her dad, Michael Monroe, stood in front of cameras days later, holding up her photo. His voice cracked as he begged for anyone with information to come forward. Her younger sister, Jenny, barely 18, broke down in tears during a candlelight vigil outside the station. She's out there, she said. Someone knows something. Neighbors brought food. Strangers mailed letters. Her mother sat by the phone all night, waiting for it to ring. They didn't care about the wild theories. They just wanted her back. Rachel's bedroom was left untouched. Her favorite jacket still hung on the chair. Her dog kept waiting by the door every night. The Monroes didn't stop searching. They put up flyers, talked to reporters, pushed the department for updates, and they made one thing clear. Rachel didn't run. She was taken. It started like any other day. Rachel Monroe met her sister Jenny at a small diner just off Main Street. They ordered grilled cheese sandwiches and shared fries. Rachel wore jeans and a t-shirt, her badge tucked into her purse. She wasn't on duty yet. Jenny said Rachel seemed happy, calm. She joked about a rookie at the station who spilled coffee on a captain. She talked about saving up for a vacation. Nothing seemed off. They laughed. They hugged goodbye in the parking lot. Rachel promised she'd call after her shift. Jenny never got that call. Later, detectives asked her, "Did Rachel say anything strange?" Jenny shook her head. No, she was just Rachel. This was around 1 p.m. It would be the last time anyone in her family saw her. There were no warning signs, no red flags, nothing that hinted she'd be gone just a few hours later. It was a normal day. Until it wasn't. At 4:18 p.m., Rachel stopped at a gas station off Highway 59. The station was small, just 2 pumps, a dusty lot, and a single camera over the door. She bought a bottle of water, a protein bar, and a pack of gum. The receipt showed. She paid in cash. Security footage showed her walking in. She looked alert, relaxed. She smiled and nodded at the cashier, a man named Travis, who later said she seemed completely normal. She didn't mention anything strange. Didn't seem rushed. Didn't seem scared. Rachel then walked back to her cruiser, took a sip of water, and pulled out onto the road. That video, barely 30 seconds long, would become the last. Confirmed footage of her alive. Police later reviewed the footage over and over. They studied the background, zoomed in on faces, checked timestamps. Nothing seemed off. No one followed her. No one suspicious came in after. Just Rachel, in uniform, doing what she always did, calm, focused, ready for her shift. Less than an hour later, she would vanish. At exactly 5:02 p.m., Rachel's voice came through the police radio. Her tone was calm, routine. Unit 27, checking on a white sedan. Mile marker 89. Looks abandoned. That was it. The call lasted 6 seconds. Dispatch responded, copy. Unit 27. But Rachel didn't answer back. They tried again. Still nothing. At first, it didn't raise alarms. Officers sometimes lost signal in that area. The highway had patches where radios cut out. But as the minutes passed, then 10, then 15, the silence grew louder. Another patrol car was sent to mile marker 89 to check in. They expected to find Rachel with a stalled car, maybe helping someone, maybe waiting for backup. But when they arrived, nothing. No Rachel. No cruiser. Just empty road, dark clouds, and wind picking up. Officers radioed again. Unit 27, respond. Still nothing. That was the last time Rachel Monroe was heard from. One short call. No stress in her voice. No signs of danger. Just a calm report about an abandoned car. And then she was gone. What happened in those next few minutes remains one of the strangest parts of the entire case. The white sedan Rachel mentioned? It did exist. It belonged to a man named Carl Jensen. He had broken down early that morning near mile marker 89. He left the car there, walked to a nearby ranch, and got a ride into town. He later confirmed everything with police. Even showed them the tow receipt. But here's the strange part. By the time officers arrived after Rachel's call, the car was gone, and so was she. The tow company said they hadn't picked it up yet. No one had. So who moved it? And when? Rachel's cruiser didn't show up on any nearby traffic cameras. There were no tire marks leaving the scene. No signs of a struggle. It was like both cars vanished into thin air. Investigators were stunned. 2 vehicles, 2 stories, 1 dead end. What should have been a simple welfare check turned into a total mystery, because now, not only was Rachel gone, so was the car she was last seen near. By the time backup arrived at mile marker 89, the storm had rolled in hard. Wind bent trees sideways. Rain pelted the asphalt in heavy sheets. Visibility was low, but the road itself told a silent story. There were no skid marks, no brake lines, no debris, no sign Rachel had ever been there. Officers walked both shoulders, checked the ditches, scanned for broken glass or fragments of a bumper. Nothing. The pavement was slick, but clear. The shoulders had soft mud, but showed no tire impressions from her cruiser. No signs she'd turned around. No signs she'd pulled off the road. It was as if her car had just vanished. Even stranger, there were no taillight reflections in the trees. No glint of metal hidden in the brush. And Rachel's radio never cut back in. Dispatch replayed her last transmission. Perfectly clear. Then silence. The officers stood in the rain, radios in hand, headlights casting long shadows through the mist. No wreck. No sign of struggle. Just wet highway and empty space. Rachel was gone. Investigators turned to the only thing left that might explain what happened. Traffic cameras. Several lined Highway 59, including one perched just a few hundred feet from mile marker 89. If Rachel had pulled off or been forced off, it should have caught everything. But the storm had other plans. According to county records, lightning struck a transformer at 5:04 p.m., just 2 minutes after Rachel's final call. That strike knocked out 3 nearby traffic cameras, including the one closest to her last location. Technicians confirmed it. The system went offline right at the moment it was needed most. There was a backup generator at the main relay tower, but it failed to kick in. The only camera that might have captured what happened went dark at the worst possible time. Detectives later described it as an eerie coincidence. Others called it something else, too perfect, too clean, almost like it was planned. Whatever the truth, the one eye watching that stretch of road blinked and missed everything. By 5:15 p.m., the rain had lightened. The sun dipped behind clouds, but we're still up. It wasn't dark yet. That stretch of Highway 59 stayed busy even during bad weather. Long-haul truckers, locals heading home, tourists driving through. Dozens of drivers passed that area during and after Rachel's call, some within minutes. Not one of them reported seeing her cruiser. No flashing lights, no car on the shoulder, no officer waving them down. It was like she'd never been there. Police reviewed dashcam footage from civilian vehicles, checked timestamps. Some drivers went through at 5:08, others at 5:12, still others by 5:20. Not even a glimpse of her patrol car in the distance. This part baffled investigators the most. Rachel didn't disappear in the dead of night. There were no shadows to hide her. She was in full uniform, driving a marked vehicle with emergency lights, radio, and GPS. Yet somehow, in under 13 minutes, she vanished right in front of the world. In daylight, on a public road, with traffic moving past. No trace, no sound, number, witness. Just gone. And whatever took her left behind nothing. It was late one night in 1997, almost a year after Rachel vanished, when a call came into the sheriff's office. The man on the line said he was at a truck stop diner in Arkansas. He sounded nervous. Said he'd seen a woman there waitressing. She looked just like Rachel Monroe. She had the same short hair, same build, even the same voice, he claimed. She didn't wear a name tag. But when someone called out, "Rachel," she turned. Detectives were on a plane within hours. They landed, drove straight to the diner, and scanned every face inside. They saw her, the waitress. Same height, same dark eyes. But when they got close, it wasn't her. Her name was Marla. She'd worked at that diner for 6 years. Never been to Texas. They checked her background, fingerprints, everything. A dead end. Rachel's family was crushed. They had gotten their hopes up again. That waitress just looked like her. Nothing more. One investigator later said, "We wanted it to be her so bad, we ignored the odds." A few months later, another lead came from Oklahoma. A teenage girl had just gotten off a Greyhound bus when she walked straight into a police station. She told officers a strange story. She said she sat next to a woman during the ride. The woman looked tired, worn down. They didn't talk much, but just before the woman got off, she leaned in and whispered, "I used to be a cop. Then I disappeared. That was it." She grabbed her bag and left at a stop outside Tulsa. The teen remembered what the woman looked like. Brown eyes, tan skin, short hair. The description fit Rachel. Detectives checked bus station cameras, searched nearby motels, pulled ticket records. Nothing. They even showed photos of Rachel to the teenager. She said it might have been her, but she couldn't be sure. And the woman on the bus? Never identified. Never seen again. It was another lead. And another wall. By 2002, Rachel had been gone for nearly 6 years. Her younger sister, Erin, couldn't take the silence anymore. She decided to start a blog. She called it Finding Rachel. At first, only friends and family read it. But soon strangers began sharing it. Journalists picked it up. TV hosts talked about it. The blog went viral. Thousands of people commented. Some offered kind words. Others shared wild theories. One woman said Rachel had been taken by someone she pulled over. Another claimed she'd seen Rachel working at a bookstore in Nevada under a different name. A few people even said they had dreams about Rachel. Vivid ones, where she was trapped in a basement or calling for help near a river. Most of it was nonsense, but Erin read every message. Every single one. She printed them, made binders, labeled each one with sticky notes and tabs. She wanted to believe, just in case something was real. The blog kept her going. But it didn't bring Rachel home. And behind the scenes, Erin was starting to break. She once wrote, "I just want to know if she's alive, even if she's not coming back." Rachel's father, Tom Monroe, had stopped trusting the official search. He felt the police weren't doing enough. So in 2003, he hired help. 2 private investigators, both ex-cops, joined the hunt. They didn't sit behind desks. They hit the road. They drove old routes Rachel had taken, talked to truckers at rest stops, scanned riverbeds, drainage tunnels, and service roads. They brought search dogs to the area near mile marker 89, where Rachel was last heard. They even hired a drone operator to scan nearby forests. Still, nothing. Tom paid for everything out of pocket. When money got tight, he quietly sold his pickup truck, the one Rachel helped him fix years ago. He didn't tell anyone. Just handed the keys to a neighbor and said, "It's time." The investigators sent him weekly reports, but each one ended the same way. No movement, no trace, no Rachel. Tom kept every report in a folder by his bed. Even years later, he'd open it at night, reread the same pages, hoping maybe he missed something. But deep down, he knew. He wasn't looking for clues anymore. He was looking for peace. By 2004, after years of dead ends, a new theory began to surface. Some experts proposed something simpler, something tragic and natural. What if Rachel Monroe never left the highway? That night, the storm was violent. Wind, hail, and blinding rain hammered the roads. Some now believed she may have been swept off the shoulder and into a culvert. One of the deep, concrete storm drains that lined the stretch of Route 46. It was the kind of answer that hurt even more because it felt possible. A state search crew was dispatched. For 2 weeks, they combed the area with diggers, flashlights, and sniffer dogs. They drained parts of the ditch system, searched debris piles and tunneled mud chambers. They found torn rubber, crushed metal, but it was all junk old scrap from past wrecks and flood damage. None of it matched Rachel's patrol car. No license plate, no badge, no bones, no answers. Still, the theory gained traction. Newspapers called it the simplest explanation. But her sister Erin wasn't convinced. She wrote on her blog, "My sister didn't just get swallowed by a ditch. She was trained for danger. She knew that road better than anyone." Then came the most painful theory of all. In 2005, one of the original investigators on Rachel's case went on record in a local interview. He said, "We explored all scenarios, including the possibility that Officer Monroe may have chosen to disappear." He mentioned no signs of a struggle, no wreckage, no blood, no body. The implication was clear. Rachel might have staged her own disappearance. The media latched on instantly. Headlines ran, "Cop gone rogue?" and "Rachel Monroe, hero or hoax?" Her family was blindsided. Erin took to her blog again, writing through tears, "This is a second death. First she vanished. Now they want to erase who she was." Her father refused interviews. Her mother stopped going to church. Friends who had once posted flyers now whispered behind closed doors. Some even wondered aloud, could she have done it? But those who truly knew Rachel held firm. She had just been promoted. She loved her job. She loved her family. She had plans, appointments, dreams. Still, the doubts spread like poison. And with it, the calls, leads, and search parties. All began to fade. By 2006, 10 years had passed. Rachel Monroe's missing posters were now sun-faded and peeling. Some had been scribbled over, others torn down. Her case file, once active and urgent, was moved into storage. Buried beneath new disappearances, newer tragedies, her badge number 4982 was quietly reassigned to a rookie officer in a nearby town. No ceremony, no announcement. Even the Finding Rachel blog went dark. Erin had stopped posting. Her last entry was one sentence: "I'm tired of begging the world to care." The town moved on. The department moved on. Her photo still hung in the precinct hallway, but lower now, near the vending machines. Most new cadets didn't even know her name. But under the same stretch of highway where Rachel vanished beneath the rusted guardrail and weather-beaten signs, something still waited, buried in silence, swallowed by time, hidden just beneath the surface. And for those who still believed in Rachel, one haunting thought remained. What if she never left that road? What if she was always right there, just never found? Because sometimes storms don't just destroy, they bury. It was spring 2007. A small highway maintenance crew was sent to mile marker 89. Their job? Clean out a clogged storm drain that had flooded during the last big rain. Nobody wanted the assignment. That stretch of road had a dark history. 11 years earlier, a young patrol officer named Rachel Monroe had vanished there. The crew didn't talk about that, but everyone remembered. They pulled up with a claw machine, gloves, and shovels. They expected old tires, mud, and maybe a dead raccoon. The first few scoops were nothing special: wet trash, tree branches, and thick black sludge. But then, the claw hit something solid. It made a metal-on-metal sound. Heavy, sharp, wrong. One of the workers leaned over the hole, trying to see inside. He waved off the steam with his hand and looked closer. "Something's down there," he said. "Something big." The claw dug again and again. It kept hitting it. Then one guy said what everyone was thinking. "This isn't junk." He backed away. And for the first time that day, no one moved. They lowered the claw again. This time, it grabbed hold. Whatever it was, heavy, thick, stuck in the mud. They had to rock the machine back and forth to loosen it. After a few minutes, the claw twisted and yanked something out. It crashed onto the ground beside the drain. Everyone froze. It was metal, twisted, torn on one side like it had been crushed. The color was hard to tell at first, mostly brown from mud and rust. But under the dirt, someone spotted paint. Black and white. One of the crew members walked up and stared. He didn't say anything at first. Then he pointed to a shape. It looked like part of a star. He backed up slowly and said, "This looks official." No one else spoke. They circled it like it might still be dangerous. A few minutes later, the foreman made the call. "Bring it back to the yard. We clean it. We figure out what it is." But as they loaded it onto the truck, one guy muttered under his breath, "If this is what I think it is, we need to call the cops." Back at the highway department garage, the team fired up the pressure washer. They aimed it at the metal, blasting away years of grime and gunk. The mud came off slowly, then faster, until shapes began to form. A white door panel, a dented spotlight, a crushed side mirror dot. Then someone gasped. "Stop. Look. On the side of the metal? Numbers dot big, blocky, faded, but still readable. Unit 423. The garage went silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Unit 423 was Rachel Monroe's patrol car, the very same car she had been driving the night she disappeared in 1996. No one moved. No one talked. The foreman reached for his phone with shaking hands and called the county sheriff. When the dispatcher answered, he said 4 words: "We found her car." Within minutes, the entire garage was locked down. Cops showed up. Tape went up. Nobody was allowed to leave. One mechanic sat down hard on a bench and stared at the floor. He whispered, "She was right here. All this time?" And for the first time in 11 years, Rachel's case was open again. The next morning, before sunrise, mile marker 89 looked like a crime scene. Police cars lined the road. They closed the highway in both directions. Detectives, search teams, and forensic experts were brought in. They scanned the area with drones. They dug deep into the storm drain using heavy machinery. And then they found it. The rest of the patrol car, buried sideways in the drainpipe, crushed like an aluminum can. The roof had collapsed. The windshield was shattered inward. Inside, they found Rachel's radio, still clipped to the seat. Her flashlight was under the pedals. Her badge was wedged between the vial. Seat cushions still shiny after all these years. But that wasn't all. In the back seat, they found a cracked clipboard with one last unfinished citation form. It was dated April 6, 1996, the same night she vanished. By noon, the press arrived. Helicopters hovered overhead. Reporters tried to film behind the police tape, but the sheriff made it clear this wasn't for cameras. This was for Rachel. One deputy was overheard saying, "It's like the storm swallowed her." But now, finally, she was starting to be found. By late afternoon, the car had been fully uncovered. It took 2 cranes to lift the crushed vehicle from the drain. The frame was bent nearly in half. One of the doors had folded over itself. Inside, the air was thick with mud and decay. A forensic team climbed in, carefully, one at a time. They found pieces of a uniform near the front seat, bits of fabric, rusted buttons, and then they found bones. Small, brittle, tucked beneath the steering wheel, scattered along the floorboards. The techs didn't say anything. They just nodded. This was her. Rachel had never left this spot. But what made everyone stop was the badge. It was wedged between the passenger seat and center console, still attached to a cracked leather holder. The badge was dull, weathered, but clearly readable. R. Monroe Unit 423. One deputy picked it up with tweezers, held it out into the sunlight, and the entire crowd of officers went silent. This wasn't just a car anymore. This was a grave. Rachel's radio was found nearby, split in 2, its antenna bent and rusted. Someone whispered. She tried to call for help. But whatever happened that night, no one heard her. Until now. At first, everyone assumed it was an accident. Rachel must have lost control in the storm, hydroplaned, skidded off the road, into the drain. But something didn't add up. Forensic teams scanned the car's structure and ran crash analysis software. There was no sign of a frontal impact, no marks of a rollover. The airbags had never deployed. One investigator crouched beside the wreck and tapped the side with his pen. This car wasn't crushed from above, he said. The damage came from the side. The metal was compacted inward as if something heavy had slammed against it horizontally and held it there. Not pushed, pressed. Even stranger, There was no natural soil layering around the car. It hadn't been buried by mud or washed in during a flood. It had been sealed in. Someone, or something had, intentionally packed the sides of the drain around it. Like they were hiding it. An engineer from the examined the tunnel. He looked pale. This car wasn't dragged in here, he said. It was already here, and the road was rebuilt on top of it. That single sentence changed everything. Now, it wasn't just a mystery. It was a cover-up. After the patrol car was pulled out, engineers stayed behind to study the site. They wanted to know how a full-size police car ended up buried so deep under a storm drain without anyone noticing. For 11 years, what they found didn't make sense. The storm drain wasn't built to hold that much weight. It should have collapsed years ago, but it hadn't. They brought in ground scanners. The readings showed a large flat area next to the drain, something that shouldn't be there. So they dug. Just a few feet down, they found concrete walls. A sealed tunnel. It was an old maintenance tunnel, built during a road project back in the 80s. There was no current access to it, no way in or out. But from the outside, the walls showed something shocking. Damage. Cracks, dents, and pressure. Points. It had been crushed from the outside. Someone didn't just forget this tunnel existed. Someone wanted it destroyed. And the timing? It matched the week Rachel went missing. Now the team realized this wasn't just a drain. It was a burial site. Investigators requested old road construction records from the state archives. They focused on Highway 12, specifically mile marker 89. In the first set of blueprints, dated April 1996, the maintenance tunnel was clearly marked. It ran parallel to the main road. But then they found a second set. These were dated July 1996, 3 days after Rachel vanished. In these newer plans, the tunnel was gone. Completely removed from the drawings. It had been erased. Investigators spoke with retired engineers, trying to find out why. Most didn't remember much. It was a long time ago. But one man, a former project manager, said something odd. He remembered the tunnel being flagged as unstable during the expansion. But instead of repairing it, the team was told to seal it off and build over it. That didn't follow standard procedure. The team wasn't just trying to meet a deadline. They were hiding something. Now, the investigators had proof. Rachel's final resting place had been on the blueprints until someone made it disappear. This wasn't just a missing person case anymore. It was starting to look like a cover up. A week after the story hit the news, a man called the sheriff's office. He didn't leave a name, just a number. Detectives called him back. He said he worked highway construction in the summer of 1996. He was a night shift operator for a subcontractor. He sounded nervous. I didn't know who she was back then, he said. We weren't told anything, but I remember what we hit. He told them about a night in July, 2 or 3 days after a big storm. One of the guys was using a backhoe near mile marker 89. He hit something hard under the dirt. At first, they thought it was a boulder, but when they cleared it off, it looked like metal. Something large, curved, almost like a car roof. The operator told the crew chief. The crew chief walked over, looked at it for 10 seconds, then turned around and said, "Cover it. Move on." The man on the phone paused. I didn't think about it again until I saw her photo on the news. That call changed the case. Now investigators knew someone found Rachel's car in 1996 and covered it back up. Records confirmed what the caller said. That week in July 1996, the road project had fallen behind schedule. Heavy rains had slowed down paving. The company in charge was losing money by the hour. Emails from that time, later recovered by detectives, showed managers arguing about delays. One boss wrote, "Get it done. No more excuses." That was the same week Rachel's car was buried. When the backhoe hit her vehicle, the crew should have stopped and reported it, but they didn't, single quotes T. Instead. They poured fresh concrete over the site the next morning, then laid down new asphalt, paved and painted. All within 2 days. No one filed a report. No one called police. And the result? Rachel's car and her body were sealed in that tunnel. All because a crew chief didn't want to lose time. All because a company wanted to meet its deadline. That quiet patch of highway, passed by thousands of cars every day, had become a grave. And no one knew until now. After learning the road crew buried her car to meet a deadline. Investigators wanted to understand how Rachel's car ended up there in the first place. They studied weather data from that night in 1996. It confirmed a major storm hit the area around 9 p.m. Wind gusts, heavy rain, and almost zero visibility. Also examined the tunnel entrance. What little was left in it. It wasn't a standard drain opening. Back then, it had a sloped concrete ramp and a wide mouth, almost like an old service road. Now, the theory came together. Rachel had just finished her shift. She was driving alone in the dark during a heavy storm. With the rain pouring and the road slick. She probably saw the opening at the last second. She must have thought it was a turnout, a place to pull over and wait out the storm. But it wasn't. The car rolled in, maybe only a few feet. Then it hit something. Mud, debris. Something blocked the wheels. She tried reversing, tried turning, but she was stuck. The water level started rising. The walls were too high to climb. And behind her, rainwater was rushing in like a river. She wasn't just lost. She was trapped and underground. Inside what was left of the patrol car, forensics teams searched carefully. The cabin had been badly crushed. Metal panels folded inward from the pressure. But they found something important on the floorboard, Rachel's two-way radio. It was broken, cracked in 3 places. But parts of the wiring were still intact. They sent it to the lab. What they found stunned everyone. The radio had been turned on. The mic button was pressed in jammed tight, as if someone had been gripping it hard when the impact happened. Experts ran diagnostics and pieced together a rough timeline. They believe Rachel had just finished her last dispatch to the station. Then something went wrong. Maybe she saw water rushing in. Maybe she realized she was trapped. She grabbed the radio and hit the button, probably trying to call for help. But she was too far. Underground. The signal never made it out. The concrete tunnel walls acted like a cage. Her voice, whatever she said, got swallowed up. And back at the station, no one heard a thing. All they knew was that Rachel had signed off for the night. No one knew she was still trying. Even in her final moments, alone, in the dark, waiting for help that never came. After finding Rachel's patrol car, investigators went back to the 1996 roadwork files. They looked through old logs, notes, and reports from that week. Most of it was routine until they found something strange. There was a short log entry from the night Rachel vanished. It read, "Equipment strike, unknown object, MM89. That's the exact mile marker where the car was found. But that entry? It was no longer in the system. An archived backup file showed the log had been manually deleted just 4 days after Rachel went missing. Someone had gone in by hand and removed it. Investigators tracked who had access to the files. It narrowed down to just 2 supervisors. One had retired. The other refused to speak. Why delete a small note about hitting something? Unless they knew exactly what that object was. It wasn't a rock. It wasn't debris. It was a police cruiser with a missing officer trapped inside. And someone made it disappear on paper, just like it disappeared underground. The truth was buried. Literally and on purpose. Next, investigators pulled old email records from the highway department. Most messages were boring. Schedules, delays, weather warnings. But then They found a thread marked Storm Week Priority, Urgent. It was between supervisors and contractors working mile marker 89. One email warned, "We can't afford another delay. No more holdups." Another added, "Use whatever shortcut you need. Just clear the drain." But one line stood out. It was sent 2 days after Rachel vanished. It read, "Whatever it was, it's gone now. Let it go." That line hit hard. Investigators now believe the crew did hit Rachel's car during cleanup. Instead of reporting it, they buried it deeper and erased the evidence, all to meet a deadline. And no one said a word. For 11 years, 3 road crew members from that 1996 job were still alive. Investigators tracked them down. The first man remembered hitting something big in the mud. Said it sounded like metal. The second man didn't say much, just laughed nervously and muttered, "I thought it was a deer." The third man hesitated, then admitted something chilling. He said, "We were told to move fast, not ask questions. Just dig, dump, and seal it." All 3 men claimed they never knew it was a car, but 2 admitted they were told by supervisors to forget it ever happened. One even remembered hearing, "If anyone asks, there was nothing down there." None of them reported it. Not then, not later, and Rachel Monroe stayed missing because people who could have spoken up, DIDN single quotes T. Out of fear, out of pressure, out of guilt, whatever the reason, it didn't matter. They helped bury more than concrete that night. They buried the truth. After the settlement, Rachel's parents were left with more questions than answers. No arrests, no apology, just years of silence. So they went back to the last place she truly lived, her small apartment in Tempe. It had been kept almost exactly how Rachel left it. Her mother couldn't bring herself to touch most of it. Same curtains, same desk, same coffee mug on the shelf. For 11 years, it had been a time capsule. But now, with the case technically closed, they decided to pack things up. That's when her father found it, a sealed envelope, tucked inside the back of a book, addressed to someone named L.T. Mason. There was no stamp, no date, but the handwriting was Rachel's. Her mother opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a handwritten letter 4 pages long. It wasn't official. It wasn't a report. It was personal. Rachel had written about her job, about the pressure, the long hours, the loneliness, but also about someone she trusted, someone she suspected. The letter mentioned a sergeant who knows more than he's saying. She wrote, "He warned me to stay away from the stormwater tunnels." Said it like a joke, but it didn't feel like one. She described the shift from 3 days before she vanished, one she had never told anyone about. She was patrolling near mile marker 89 when she saw equipment where it shouldn't be. No crew, no lights, just a backhoe near the tunnel. She logged the location in her notebook, but never filed it. Why? The letter didn't say. It ended with, "If anything happens to me, please don't let it slide." It's not an accident if someone knew. Rachel never sent the letter, and no one knows if L.T. Mason ever saw it. Investigators tried to track him down, but there were no matching records. Not in the department, not in the city. No officer or contact by that name. Was it a fake name? A middle name? A codey name only she understood? Or someone who vanished just like she did? Whatever the truth was, the letter changed everything. Rachel hadn't just been a victim of bad luck. She'd been watching something, noticing things, and maybe someone didn't want her talking. Maybe what happened in that storm wasn't just a freak accident or a buried mistake. Maybe it was the final move in something bigger, something that began before the rain even started. Her parents handed the letter over, but there were no follow-ups. No new case file. No headlines. It disappeared into evidence storage. Just like Rachel had disappeared into that culvert. And just like that, the last thing Rachel ever wrote, the one thing that might explain everything, was shelved and forgotten. Until years later, when someone else found it, and everything came rushing back. In May 2009, 13 years after she vanished, Rachel finally came home. Her remains, found deep beneath the highway drain, had been identified months earlier. Now, her family could finally lay her to rest. The service was held beside her childhood church in a small Texas town. It was a clear, quiet morning. Her casket was draped in the Texas state flag. Over 200 officers showed up, many of them strangers. Highway patrol, sheriff's deputies, even cadets from the academy lined the walkway. Most had never met her. But they came anyway. Not because she was famous. Not because the case was solved. They came because she wore the badge, and because her story had haunted their ranks for over a decade. As the honor guard moved past, no one spoke. Some saluted. Some bowed their heads. Some just watched in silence as Rachel's casket passed. Her parents stood arm in arm, holding each other up. Her mother whispered, "She's home." After years of rumors, theories, and silence, Rachel finally had a proper goodbye. But what came next made the silence break. And it came from the person who had stayed quiet the longest. At the memorial, Rachel's younger sister, Emily, stepped up to speak. She was shaking. She hadn't spoken publicly since Rachel went missing. She looked out at the crowd, officers in uniform, neighbors, strangers, her parents, and took a breath. Then she said quietly, "My sister didn't leave us. She didn't run away. She didn't make a mistake. She tried to come home." The crowd stood in silence. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. She stayed on the job. She followed a call. She did what she was trained to do, even when it cost her everything. Some officers looked down. Others wiped their eyes. Emily held up Rachel's badge, the same one found near the crushed patrol car. This badge didn't get lost. It was buried, just like the truth. Then she added, "If you remember anything about her, remember this: she didn't give up." Several detectives were seen crying. And for the first time in 13 years, Rachel's family felt like people were finally listening. Rachel's story didn't end at her funeral. The Texas Department of Public Safety made sure of that. In 2010, they added a new section to the State Police Academy curriculum: case study. Officer Rachel Ferris, Unit 423. Every new cadet now learns her story. They hear about the night she vanished, the long silence, the clues that were missed, and the crushed patrol car no one expected to find. It's not a lesson in mystery. It's a lesson in what happens when people stop looking. During every oath ceremony, Rachel's name is now read aloud, in honor of the fallen who were never forgotten. Her photo is on the academy wall. Her badge number is retired. And once a year, at the memorial, her sister still shows up, sometimes just to watch. She says Rachel would have wanted the next generation to do better. To ask more questions. To not be afraid of silence. Rachel didn't get justice, but her story trained a generation to keep going until the truth is found. And that might be the most important thing she ever did. 3 months after Rachel's father passed, Emily received a box. No return address. No note. Just a plain brown package left on her doorstep. Inside was a leather-bound journal. At first, she thought it was one of Rachel's old notebooks, something her dad had saved and planned to give her. But the handwriting wasn't Rachel's. It was someone else's. And every page was about Rachel: names, dates, patrol logs, maps of the highway culverts, markings of places where maintenance crews had reported issues but were told to stand down. There were even blurry photocopies of internal memos. One dated March 10th, 1996, 2 weeks before the storm. It read, Unit 423 flagged potential hazard unauthorized. Equipment at mile 89. Tunnel access may have been compromised. Do not escalate until further notice. The memo had no signature. Emily sat on the floor, hands shaking. Who sent this? Why now? At the bottom of the box was one last item, Rachel's old field notebook. But there was something inside it that Emily had never seen before. A torn photo, grainy, taken at night. But you could make out a man's silhouette standing near a covert entrance. The same location Rachel had written about in the letter that was never mailed. Emily took the journal to the police, but it disappeared into pending review. Double quotes again. No follow-up. No press release. Just more silence. But Emily had learned one thing from her sister. Silence doesn't mean no one's listening. So she started making copies. She mailed them to reporters, to retired officers, to anyone who had ever cared about her sister's case. And slowly, the whispers started again. Rachel's story wasn't buried anymore. And this time, someone wanted the truth to come out, no matter what it cost.